Best Buy.
Space and Style, 6:30 p.m. on Saturdays and 5:30 p.m. on Wednesdays.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
If you don't talk, they go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
You know, in Kadam, we sat down and looked at the spectrum of the things available, and then we came to a classification. 4 groups. The first one is socially acceptable, alcohol and cigarette. Go and check today. There is no alcohol you will not find in sachet. And why do they put it in sachet? The man who cannot buy the bottle can buy the sachet. The sachet is about 20 naira. So when you go to the drug, you see them buy like 2 of them, using them, release the amount, put it out, and then begin to use the drug of that day.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. It's time for Off the Press. We will take you through the pages of the national dailies and then have a big guest join us analyzing the stories we do have on standby. Chris Kende Nwandu, it's good to have you join us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right. As always, attention would be on the big stories on our dailies. I start off with the Leadership newspaper this morning. I'd be looking at the bold caption. Governors disagree with President Muhammadu Buhari, insist on state police. That's the bold caption. Says military police overwhelmed by security challenges. To upgrade vigilantes, local guards, regional security outfit as interim measure. You also have ex-servicemen and security expert differ on state police. That argument has surfaced again, and I feel that would just constantly dominate, the discourse until we decide whether or not we want, state policing in our country. Federal government earmarks 3.53 trillion investment to address 17 million housing deficit. That's also another caption on the Leadership. And Tinubu's presidential ambition stirs the internet. That has generated a lot of reactions. NLC, health workers knock bill to outlaw strike. That's also another interesting one this morning. And just before we move away, troops kill 5 terrorists in Kaduna village. After 10 years, Yobe lifts ban on motorcycles. You also have AFCON Super Eagles meet Pharaohs today, talking about that game with Egypt. We'll see how that pans out. That's the much we can take on the Leadership newspaper this morning. Away from the Leadership, let's turn our attention to the Punch newspaper. And on the Punch newspaper, the banner caption reads, Ohaneze fumes, alleges injustice as Tinubu declares presidential bid. I have informed Buhari of my ambition. He did not ask me to stop, says the APC leader. Tinubu's presidential ambition not rooted in equity, justice. It's Igbo man's turn, Ohaneze is quoted. P&ID firm paid 9,969 into directors' daughters' accounts before agreement and signing. Wow. That's also another interesting caption. That's what a weakness is quoted to say. The value currency further raises interest rates, IMF tells Nigerians and others. EFCC rearrests Mofa for alleged 32.9 billion naira money laundering, and Disco's indebtedness hits 326 billion naira in 9 months, says the federal government. And still looking at the Punch newspaper this morning, power generation drops as vandals ground 504 megawatts plant. I take that again. Power generation drops as vandals ground 504 megawatt plant. Internet subscribers fall by 11 million over NIM and SIM. That's the SIM linkages and orders. That's also another one you find this morning. And parliamentary workers picket National Assembly, protest unpaid salaries and allowances. APC picks January 27th for Ekiti governorship primaries. Kwankwaso rubbishes zoning and begins consultation on 2023 presidential bid. Suspected cultists tie Lagos casino attendants' hands and stab victims to death. And you also have army arrest soldiers for alleged assault on Oyo traffic workers or wardens. I beg your pardon. Ekiti sales boy disguised and threatened boss with kidnap and demands 1.5 million naira. And you also have the FRSC begins enforcement of speed limit and arrests 7 motorists. Now, this is some of the headlines on the Punch newspaper. We move away from the Punch and let's all check out the To Rule Nigeria. Says Tinubu, I have confidence, capacity to rule Nigeria, says Tinubu. That's the bold caption for the Daily Independent ahead of 2023. Says Buhari not adverse to his lifelong presidential plan. We have been vindicated by Tinubu's declaration. He should quit the stage for younger politicians. There's a lot of back and forth following this particular, caption. Gunmen enforcing sit-at-home order killed 2 and burned vehicles in Enugu and Anambra State. You also have subsidy removal will help 2022 budget implementation. This is according to civil society organization. Regime responsible for Nigerians' economic woes. Lassa fever killed doctor, 2 others in Benue State. And fiscal deficit funding, subsidies reform present risks to inflation. With bandits declared terrorists, we will defeat them. That's what the army chief is quoted to say. And FAN arrests 90 persons at Lagos, Abuja airports over touting and extortion. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and deputy governors meet over boundary cries. This is some of the caption on the Daily Independent. And just before we move away, we just also check out the Daily Sun newspaper this morning. And on the Daily Sun, still dominating all of the papers this morning, 2023, Tinubu notifies Buhari of presidential ambition. That's also on the bold caption. Afenifere, Ohaneze, ACF, MBF, orders divided. 57 groups endorse Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. Only PDP can rescue Nigeria. Governor Diri is quoted on that, and Bishop Coker denies DSS invitation. There's also another caption here. EFCC grills 22 suspected oil thieves and recovers 1.52 billion naira, $386 million in 2021. NLC attacks NAS over bill to outlaw industrial action. Nigerians want state please, and Clark tells Buhari accuses president of using police to obstruct free speech and persecute political enemies. Social media, Abia governor warns falsehood peddlers. It's also another one. And gunmen abduct Imo ex-speaker, 4 others. Akeredolu sets up campaign against beef in southwest and urges people to embrace poultry instead. IPOB explains proposed cow meat ban in southeast. These are the headlines on the Daily Sun newspaper. We're just going to have Chris Wendu join the conversation this morning. Once again, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning once again.
Good morning. So let's start off with the big stories on the dailies this morning, and the bold caption talking about the declaration for the presidential bid 2023, talking about the former governor of Lagos State, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. What are your thoughts and the reactions that this has generated over, the last 24 hours?
Yes, the question we need to ask ourselves is, does the former governor of Lagos State, national leader of APC, have the constitutional right to vie for the highest office in Nigeria? Of course it does, and it is his right as enshrined by the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Ghana. Don't forget, he tried to occupy the office in 2023 and took over office from the president. And so I have no problem with that. But it is now within the party itself to be able to determine who is going to fly their flag. What he did not tell us fully yesterday was the reaction of the president. Also, he said the president has nothing against him. That I would have I wanted to see whether the president was going to endorse him. But he didn't tell us that. Don't also forget that the president, a few days ago in a television interview, said that he has his own candidate for 2023, that he was not going to name the person because he feels that if he names him, there's the possibility that he will eliminate it. But good enough, Tinubu has thrown his hat in the ring, and I can assure you that in the next few days or weeks, some other people within the political party will also express their own ambition, and I will take it from there. But what is more paramount now is how APC will be able to put its act together and hold this national convention, which it has postponed severally. There are so many talk here and there on the reason why that convention is not holding. But from what we're hearing, that I think in the next few weeks they'll be able to do that. But whether or not Tinubu has the right to contest, fine. But my own little challenge here is that I feel that, one, that he might have one or two things against him. One is the fact that Tinubu is not, although I'm not a medical doctor, but I know that Tinubu has been in and out of hospital for some time now. I don't know how that is going to count against him because we also saw what happened in 2015 when we had a president that was elected that was going in and out of hospital almost on a monthly basis. And that in itself affected his capacity and performance as a president for a long time. There was a time he was in UK for months or weeks, and he continued going in and out. That for me was a minus for the president. And we know that former Governor Bola Tinubu has not been the best of health, but it's only God that gave health, so nobody can say anything. So if he thinks he's duly fit now, all well and good. Second is also the issue of age. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is in his 70s, going to 80s. Do we still need such old people to be able to handle the affairs of the country? Do they have the capacity and the mental ability to be able to handle issues of governance in a polarized system like ours? That is left to be seen. But as I said, he has the right to contest, and he has made this decision. So he says he's consulting, and formally he will inform Nigerians in the days to come, formally. Okay,
so within that particular premise now, let's also talk about the fact that you also have some groups like the Ohanese, among others, who are saying that this is actually not very fair because it should be the time for the South Now, when you talk about the South, we don't know if we're talking about the Southeast or the Southwest. That's the issue of zoning. So what are your thoughts surrounding these arguments that are being put out now? It should be, the turn for the South.
Well, nobody will drop any office on your laps. You have to work for it. So if the Southeast wants the presidency, then they have to work for it. They have to consult with other stakeholders across Nigeria, not just only in the South, but also in the North, and win their confidence. It also depends on the kind of candidate they are bringing forward. Will they be able to match other candidates from other parts of the country? That is also, for them to be able to do that, they also have to put their hearts together. And other what platform are they talking about? If we let us be realistic, the Southeast have never had, have not had the best of time with APC. They've supported APC as a party. South is mostly a PDP region right from 1999, and they've not changed that. Although you have pockets of governors coming from the APC once in a while. You have Rochas Okrocha, that was a governor of Imo State. Before the Hope Uzodinma was installed by Supreme Court, who is also the governor of Imo State presently. In the Southeast, you have an Apga governor in Anambra State. Then in the other parts of the state also, you have Ebonyi, which is predominantly used to be a PDP state, but the governor defected from PDP to APC. But most of them are not. You always know that the Southeast has always been pro-PDP. If they're saying that Tinubu is doing the wrong thing by not allowing the Southeasterners to have a shot at the presidency, well, that is wrong. They have equal candidates in the APC who can also give Bola Tinubu a run for his money at the convention, if they so wish. So you have the Ngige there, you have so many of the, you have Rochas Okorocha, you have so many members of the Southeasterners in the APC. If they treat that as their right, then let them go to convention and also contest alongside with Bola Tinubu and other presidential aspirants of the APC. And let's see how it goes. But if you think that they can just sit down and be saying that give us the presidency for 2022, nobody's going to do that. Politics is about giving and taking. So you give and take. But don't forget that also the PDP has not zoned its own presidential seat to any region yet. So that's what I say. It's probably might zone into the South or Southeast as it may. But if what is coming out of the PDP is anything to go by, if you look at one of the headlines this morning, former Kano State Governor Rabi Okwankwaso said that PDP must not zone its presidential slot to the South, that you should leave it open. And if that's the kind of information and mindset that is coming from the North, then there's a lot of challenges there. But as I said, Southeast should put their hearts together, work together, and be able to come up with credible candidates that can face anybody from any part of the country. And that will be left for Nigerians to now vote for a candidate of their choice.
All right, let's also look at the leadership. On the leadership, you have the NLC and health workers knock bill to outlaw strike. That seemed, a little bit undemocratic because strike has always been, means where different persons have actually deployed a tool to demand, their needs, policies, and demand good governance and, push their own concerns to government across board.
There's nobody that can stop anybody from going on strike. That's a constitutional right. If there is anything that agitates your mind, or you think that your rights are being stumbled upon, or you are not getting the necessary remuneration as agreed, then you have the right to go on strike. There is nobody, there's no court in the land that can stop anybody from going on strike. So if anybody is making that allusion that people should go on strike and just wasting his time, they will surely go on strike. That is the only way that they can press for demands on issues concerning them, especially when it comes to welfare of workers. That is the only legitimate way of agitation, except you now want them to resort to violence, which is against normal norms and also the Constitution. But that will stop everybody from going on strike. That is not illegal. The Constitution is very, very clear on this. And there have been so many judgments and court pronouncements on those issues. And that is the fundamental right of every worker. And so that is not even something to discuss about. There is no good way about it. Every worker has a right to go on strike.
But you know, we're talking about, you know, an act of legislation here that's almost, you know, seeing the light of day. And what if that becomes a law that, you know, strike should be outlawed?
Yes. Don't forget that before anybody engages on strike, or before any organization or group go on strike, there have always been negotiation. Strike is always the last point at which workers begins disobedience. Don't forget that there will always be room for negotiations and negotiation and the rest of them. It is only when that fails that strike begins. Nobody comes up. No, I have never seen a little labor organization or any organization that comes up and just say, we are going on strike. No, it is not done. What normally happens is that there will be negotiation. After negotiation must have broken down, then there will be notices. They give notices in the next 3 weeks, in the next 1 month, in the next 2 months. If you don't meet our demands and the rest of them, we go on strike. So, and that is the normal way it goes. So, whether legislation or no legislation, as I repeat and I continue to say, there is no law that stops any person, that stops any worker from going on strike in Nigeria. None. There is none. So the best way to go about it, and why do people go on strike, is because most often than not, organizations and government agencies or government goes into negotiation, goes into agreement with workers, sign a document, sign a contract, and at the end of it, they fail. It has happened several times, over and over again. We've seen it with ASU, we've seen it NMA, we've seen it with local government workers, we've seen it with judiciary workers and the rest of them. At the end of it, the government or some of these organizations don't meet up to the contract, the terms of the contract, and that is what leads to such a strike. So, but if you don't want such, then you have to meet the demands of the workers. Else, as I said, strike is always the last option.
All right, and you also like to share your thoughts on the sit-at-home order that's been enforced in, Enugu and Anambra State, and the arguments surrounding it. And some people say it has not yielded any result for the IPOP, and so a different approach should be taken, however, to press forth their demands. iPod every time. The issue with iPod is it's multi-functional, as it were. Now, I think the most critical point in the question is whether or not to the issue surrounding the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu. Several people from the Southeast have felt that there's a need for the government to just let go, and so that there will be a need for proper negotiation on some of the issues raised by Nnamdi Kanu and IPOP. Don't forget recently that in an interview a few days ago, the president came out to say that there is nothing he's going to do about Nnamdi Kanu, that Nnamdi Kanu is going to go through the means of prosecution and he should be able to defend himself in court. That his office table now, that Nnamdi, but I know that so many leaders of the Southeast and also Hannes and Igbo have come out to say that that is not the way to go, that the president should have a routine. Don't forget also some months back, leaders from the Southeast met with the president at the villa, leading that he should be able to handle the issue of Nnamdi Kanu with some kind of fatherly role and see whether it can be released. But on a daily basis, the IPOD in itself is digging in. And of recent, the statement coming from IPOD is anything to come by. IPOD is saying by April that they will ban all beef or cows, eating of beef or cow meat in the Southeast, that they will stop movement of cows into the Southeast. Some northern groups have also come out to say that if that happens, then also they are going to place ban on goods coming from the Southeast into the North. This, to me, is not the way to go. We should be looking for solutions to the problems as it were.
And what we are seeing now is an escalation of crisis, both from the IPOB and some other groups. This is not the way to go. I think that we can still have a more robust approach to the issues at stake. Yes, the question you always ask, I've always said is that, in as much as I don't believe in IPOB or whatever Nnamdi Kanu say, but most of them know we cannot throw away the baby with the bad water. Most of the issues raised by Nnamdi Kanu, some of these issues, is it true? And it's true, because we are talking of marginalization. Don't forget, some few minutes ago, we are talking about the Southeast, saying that they deserve the presidency in 2023, and they believe that other parts of the country should support them. That is part of what they feel, that they have been marginalized. Because come to think of it, since 1999, the Southeast is the only region that have not produced the presidency. It's not a produced president, in the person of Yar'Adua. The Southwest produced Olusegun Obasanjo. The South has produced Goodluck Jonathan, but nothing, nobody from the Southeast. So some of these are the key allegations being made by agitators from the Southeast, and I think that should be looked at instead of just sweeping it under the carpet. But I think that the best way to go about it is for us to have a joint discussion on issues of agitation, not only in the Southeast, but even in the Southwest. Don't forget the Bohos and the rest of them are also agitating. And so we have so much on our table now that any level of distraction will not be good for Nigeria. What we need now is a united force to fight the problem we are having, which is the problem of insecurity. All hands must be on deck, whether from the north, from the south, or from anywhere, to make sure we are able to cut this and be able to kill this terrible issue of insecurity that is practically taking over Nigeria. That, to me, should be a priority. All of that level of these things should go into the realms of negotiation, and I think we can get it right if we have the best of will to do that.
All right, so I'd also like to draw your attention to another, caption here on the Daily Independent. It says that subsidy removal will help 2022 budget implementation. This is according to civil society organization. Do you agree with that ideology? Anybody can come up to me and say he's a civil society organization. All sorts of this Jankara civil society. I don't know the name, I've not registered this, so I don't know which of them. Everybody wake up one day and say, I'm a civil society, and the rest of them. Forget these people. They are just talking for the face of. We have been given so many reasons how removal of subsidy can help the economy. Fine, I am for removal of subsidy, but the fact is that at the end of it all, what comes out of it? What other we'll be able to make? Are we going to channel it truly, as the federal government has always told us, into capital projects and projects that will benefit Nigerians? That itself has always been the issue. And if you say you are removing subsidy, then what is the alternative? You are talking of now Nigerians are going to buy petroleum at 300 and something. Don't forget that this is Nigeria that already been overtaxed. Even recently, just as a few days ago, when the Minister of Finance was talking about the issue of tax, the soft drinks that you and I take, there's going to be more tax on it. I'm sure you're aware of that. They just came up with that. They call it the carbonated drinks. There's going to be tax. We have moved back from 5% to 7.5%. On a daily basis, the bank are charging us. There are so many other taxes across Nigeria. So a removal of subsidy, we've said it time and time on. It's not removal of subsidy on petroleum that is the problem. We find that the fact is that we have to make our refineries to work. We must stop the importation of fuel. No matter whatever, if you remove subsidy, the problem will continue. In as much as we continue to import fuel, the prices of this product will continue to go up. So the promises made to Nigerians in 2015 by this current government, I call it the outgoing government because they practically had about 7 years and just have barely 1 year to go, is that they're going to revive and build so many refineries that the end of it will not be importing fuel. But over 95%, if not 100% of the fuel that we consume and petroleum we consume in Nigeria are imported. And that is the reason why we have these high prices. It is only Nigeria that is a country that produces crude oil, exports crude oil, and now buy petroleum. No other country in the world, even within OPEC, does that.
And that is where the problem is. So if you continue to say, oh, we want to remove subsidy on petroleum, we are going to channel this thing into other sectors and rest of them. I don't believe that. I don't believe in that analogy, because even if you remove subsidy, tomorrow they will still come up with something. So, but I don't. So for me, forget all these wannabe civil societies or whatever they call them. I don't think they have the best interest of Nigeria. They should be telling us the alternative for us. They should be telling us what we should do. They should be telling the government what to do, and not just adding to the talk and saying that we need to remove. So as if we remove subsidy, that is the end of the problem. That is not the end of the problem.
All right. On the Punch, you also have devalue currency further, raise interest rates. IMF tells Nigeria and others.
Well, we're always on the beck and call of IMF and the World Bank. They determine what happens in the economy and the rest of them. But why we're always having so much, what I would say that so much shock, and we cannot be able to arrest the issue of the devaluation and the problem we are having with the dollar. But as of a few days ago, in the open market, the dollar is going for over 550 naira to a dollar. That is on the high side. The official market is about 400 and something. But how many people have the opportunity of it? What we need to do is to create enough avenue for exporting. We should be more creative in our economy. We have talked about the issue of agriculture. We have talked the issue of mining. These are other sectors where even IT. Most countries live on IT. That's what they live on. A country like India, a country like China. I still think that we can do a lot in that. But once we continue importing, that is going to be the problem, and it will continue to have a condition on our currency. And don't forget that we practically turn to a borrowing country. On a daily basis, we are going to China and across the globe to borrow money, and that is not the way to go. If you continue a country that goes, any person that goes a borrowing goes a sorrowing. So we are the beck and call of some of these countries that will practically go to on our knees every day begging for money instead of looking for ways of. I believe and I still think that this government has the capacity. We have enough Nigerians that can have the capacity to think out of the box and be able to revive this country, turn around this economy. But we play politics with everything. They don't have to come from APC. Obasanjo did it in 1999 by bringing so many technocrats. Somebody like Okonjo-Iweala, Obi Ezekwesili, people like El-Rufai, who was in charge of BP. We are not members of PDP. They just came, they are technocrats, which were brought into government, and you saw what they did. By the time the government of Obasanjo was leaving, we have practically cleared up all our foreign debts, and we had nothing. But what have we been having now? We just have yes man and party men being appointed who don't know their left from their right, and the economy is continuing to nosedive as we are having it.
Well, but what would be the implication if, we have to pay attention to the advice of the MIF, the International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF right now. And you also mentioned the fact that we're constantly at the mercy of the International Monetary Fund. Now, what's that?
It's not today the IMF have been telling us this. Don't forget that in years back, remember the days of SAP, if you remember the day of structural adjustment program in those days, it was an IMF policy. IMF will always go to developing countries and be able to give all sorts of monetary advices. IMF cannot open its mouth and tell Russia or United States of America what to do, because these are strong economies. They cannot go to France. They cannot go to Germany and tell them what to do. They cannot tell, what's her name? I just called her name now. Was also at the World Bank as the vice president at one point, Obi Ezekwesili. The fact I'm trying to say is that until we continue going this route of always depending on foreign loans, on foreign debt, and not building enough capacity economically in Nigeria to be able to empower ourselves and be able to handle ourselves, they will continue to, because they know you always come around to borrow from IMF. They know you come to borrow from World Bank. And when you go borrowing, they are going to give you the tax. It's just like asking for a bank loan. If you go to the bank to borrow money, you'll be asked not only collaterals, but the bank also want to tell you what to do with the money you are borrowing. So that is the problem we are having. So IMF will always come, and World Bank will always come to tell us what about are those monetary policies, physical or whatever policies, are they good enough for the country? Has it good enough for Nigeria? Has it worked for us? It has not worked. So what we need to do is build up our capacity, look at our economy, transform our economy, make ourselves, put ourselves in a position where we don't need to wait for anybody to tell us what to do. But if we continue to wait on them, depend on IMF and World Bank for our survival, whatever they give us, we have no option than to take it.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Chris Nwandu, for being part of the conversation this morning. We really do appreciate your time and your thoughts on these issues. We look forward to having more of you.
Thank you very much for having me, and do have a nice day.
All right, you too. Well, that's so much we can take on Off the Press this morning. When we come through, we will head straight to our first major conversation, where we will be looking at the cyber attack on the National Identity Management Commission that has allegedly cost over 3 million national identity cards of Nigerians. Please stick around.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there is regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare, Sundays, 7 p.m. on PlusTvAfrica.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
And the moment they cross these waters, they excel. Both Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, South, everybody in Nigeria. We've been ranked the most successful ethnic group in the United States. Why is it that we excel there, but not at home? It can only lead to the direction.
We need to completely change our educational system. I'm sure everybody here will agree with me. It's absolute nonsense.
It's outdated.
And what really taught a lot of parents that is when we were on lockdown in COVID and we're all teaching our own children. And I totally revamped their curriculum and understood that, look, it's not all about open book, learn this, learn this. They had to learn how to take care of themselves. They had to learn how to cook and clean, and not just the girls, the boys. They had to learn to garden, to plant things, to clean, to imagine, to draw. It's not about your skill. It's not about the ability at that point. It's about exposing children to all the things of life and allowing them to find their direction within a framework, of course. And we in Nigeria, we have a tend to just say, you will do this, you will do that, girl does this, boy does that. And not realizing that we're shortchanging our entire society in the long run, in our future. Because what you segment or partition one child in and put another in is what you're doing for an entire future and a nation. And we need to think in larger terms when we're thinking about the education of our children.
Everything can be exported. Everything you think about it. So knowing that as an entrepreneur, whatever trade you're doing, whatever product you're creating, having the mind that it can be on a shelf globally is something that every female entrepreneur should aspire for. Understand the sector. It can be fintech, it can be any sector. Understand it, mingle enough with people in that sector and think about your sweet spot. That's the problem that you want to solve. And just go. It is not an emotional affair, it's business. When you come to the business table, don't bring emotions. I know that everybody died, somebody cries, so many things are happening to you. Guess what? There are times to discuss this, but when it's business and money, try to,
A lot of us parents, we think we do not have the power and that maybe because of peer pressure, but you are the parent. If you buy them the phone, you can insist, okay, no social media apps, don't put the credit on it for the internet. And then you can even when they're allowed to go on social media, you can decide what apps they can go on. And you can even restrict how much time they spend on those apps.
But wouldn't that be
infringing on their...
So much